Zeboyd, come play with us.
Hey, hello everybody. This is Robert Boyd from Zeboyd Digital Entertainment. Going to talk a bit about Path of Exile, specifically ExileCon 2023. Now, let's talk a bit more about Path of Exile 2. They announced the closed beta date is going to be June 7th in 2024. Now, I don't know about you, but for me personally, this is a huge disappointment. I know there was lots of rumors before ExileCon this year that they were going to do a surprise beta release then. Before ExileCon happened, they said, no, that wasn't happening. But, going from, oh, I wonder if they're going to surprise us and start beta now or very soon, to, oh, beta is currently planned for about a year away is a bit disappointing and really feels like a missed opportunity with Diablo 4 coming out recently. And for me personally, I found Diablo 4 fairly disappointing. So it would have been great to have a brand new um, hack and slash loot-based action RPG to play instead soon. Um, and it's especially disappointing because with the closed beta off for about a year, there's every possibility that they're going to end up delaying it. And also, once the closed beta begins, it will be sometime before the actual Path of Exile 2 is ready to release to the public. So, we could be waiting quite a while for that. The other big thing that they announced today was that Path of Exile 2 is going to be a standalone game. It's going to still keep your um, microtransactions, your stash tabs, the stuff that you've purchased in one game will be usable in the other if it's applicable, but otherwise it's going to be completely separate games. Now, personally, I think this is a fantastic idea. I've been playing Path of Exile for, almost 10 years now. I started around the Talisman League, so that was a while ago. And, Path of Exile is great, but it's been years and years of development, of leagues, of patches, buffs, nerfs, and, it is just crazy these days. There's been so many buffs and so many nerfs, and there's been systems that made sense years ago that don't anymore. So I completely understand why they would want to say, okay, let's have a clean slate, let's change some systems around and not have to worry about catering to every little bit of things that we've added to the game over the course of many, many years. That is a great thing. And with Path of Exile 2, they've made all these announcements how auras are going to be different, links are going to be different, passive tree, you can have multiple passive trees. There's going to be all these new class ascendancies. So I can see why they are saying we need to separate these out. This gives us more design space that we can make more drastic changes without worrying about how it will affect all of these pre-existing systems. I also see how it could really benefit the player base because for many months now, people have been upset that Path of Exile 1 keeps making changes that people are thinking, oh, this is to try to get the game in line with Path of Exile 2. So if the two games are just separate games, they don't have to worry so much about that. They can just let Path of Exile 1 do its thing and Path of Exile 2 be its own thing. And I really feel like with the league announcements today that they were leaning into that, where they were talking about how crazy the new in-game passive nodes were that would let you drastically change things around. Like have the tower defense mode be a proper tower defense mode by drastically boosting your tower damage while drastically reducing your own damage, and with support gems that just looked absolutely bonkers in the little demo they did. So I can see how, this could be very good for Path of Exile 1. Let it, lean into how unbalanced and unhinged it's gotten over the years and just go pull on in that direction. While with Path of Exile 2, they can focus on making it more of a modern action RPG, and have more of the original vision for Path of Exile 1 they had, where it was supposed to be a very difficult, hardcore game. That, Path of Exile 1, it's crazy complicated, but it's no longer, the high level difficulty game that it used to be, just because there's been so many buffs and power creep over the years that they just, each league they have to make things more powerful for the player, with more impressive bonuses, to keep people interested. And then they have to make the enemies more powerful to counteract that. And it's just a never ending arms race. So I can see why they have a desire with the new game to just, start over with a more balanced level and focus back on that high level of difficulty. Another thing they said about having the two games be their own thing is that they can stagger leagues and have leagues on both Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2. So they have a league on Path of Exile 2, and then part of the way through that league, they announce a different league on Path of Exile 1. Now, I saw some people saying, "Oh, this hurts the casual player because they'll be inundated by all these different leagues." But I'm guessing the casual player, if they decide to play Path of Exile, will pick Path of Exile 1 or 2, whichever they like the most, and just stick with that, and maybe try out the other occasionally, but not feel like they have to do all of the league content in both games. So I could see how some, hardcore players might decide to do both of them. So because they like the different styles that each game provides, or they just like the variety of having a new league come out every few weeks. But this seems like a, great idea, because with the league system, they want to keep having new content, and they want to give a variety of different players enough time to play through this content. But some people finish it early, some people take longer. So this gives them more flexibility there. Also, it gives them a lot of flexibility and safeguards for their own revenue streams as a company, because we've got, basically the three scenarios that could happen. First of all, Path of Exile 2 comes out and is a big success, but people still keep playing and enjoying Path of Exile 1 in large numbers. So here, they make tons and tons of money. They have lots of people enjoying number 2. They have lots of people enjoying 1. They have some people enjoying both of them. It just gives them lots and lots of opportunities to make money and continue to support both games. Another highly possible scenario is Path of Exile 2 comes out. It's very popular. And then Path of Exile 1, a lot of those players transition over to number 2. And Path of Exile 1 becomes less and less popular over time. In this scenario, they make good money from Path of Exile 2 leagues, but they're still able to support players with Path of Exile 1 over time. And if the player base on Path of Exile 1 drops, their support lessens, and eventually they may stop doing new leagues or shut it down entirely. But they're able to, grant, slowly sunset the game and not have it suddenly disappear overnight. So that's good. People, Path of Exile 1, get to play the game longer. It's disappointing that they'll eventually have to shut it down, but you know, it's better than it just disappearing when Path of Exile 2 happens. Now, the third scenario, most difficult for grinding gear games, would be if Path of Exile 2 comes out and it's not very successful at launch, but Path of Exile 1 continues to be successful. Even this scenario isn't, a complete disaster from grinding gear games, because with this scenario, they still have the Path of Exile 1 fan base, and revenue streams there, while they can make adjustments to make Path of Exile 2 more popular. So this, by having the two games be separate, not only does it let them, have a lot more design flexibility to change and improve systems, without having to worry about years and years of, adjustments and items and changes, buffs, nerfs, all of that. it gives them lots of flexibility with design, but also it gives them uh, lots of safety with their revenue, because in every situation, they're making money to some extent. Path of Exile 2 successful, yay for them. Path of Exile 1 stay successful, they still keep that money. If one of them is successful and the other one is not, they can either take the time, they can use the success of one to try to boost the other, or over time they could uh, lower support for the one that's less successful before eventually shutting it down. So it gives them a lot of flexibility. Now, I've seen some complaints online with people who are not pleased with how this is set up. I've seen some people complain that, they were told they were both going to be the same game, so why did they have to make all of those changes to Path of Exile 1 to make it fit into Path of Exile 2? I can see, their complaint, why not just let Path of Exile 1 be its own thing and, make Path of Exile 2 its own thing, which, eventually is what they decided. Lots of people complained that, oh, why'd you have to nerf so much with Path of Exile 1? But really, over time, Path of Exile 1 has, it feels like for every nerf, there's at least one buff. And over time, there's just been so much power creep with the game. You know, Way back when it was very difficult, challenging. Then they added ascendancies, which was a huge bit of power creep. They added customizable passive trees. They've added so many different leagues with various bonuses. With the current league Crucible, I'm sure anyone who has been paying attention to the forums have seen just absolutely bonkers items that people have made. The other day I saw 2000 plus elemental DPS bow with rampage and high crit, and various bonuses to specific abilities and miscellaneous other bonuses. And you know this was an ability, this was a bow that you could easily do mirror services for. But even the lower level equipment has been much more powerful with Crucible. You can get an okay weapon and stick a good Crucible tree on it, and it's just a huge boost in power. And so we've had so many leagues like that where you can get all this power, and sometimes they go to the base game, and sometimes they don't. But um, I think over time, there's definitely been power creep, and there have been some painful nerfs, but a lot of the most painful ones have been, you know, backtracked on. The whole arch nemesis thing, which made for some interesting gameplay, but also noticeably increased the difficulty, sometimes drastically so. And there was just so many complaints about that that they eventually canceled the system and did something else instead. So I can see how some people are upset that, they aren't going to be the same game, but I think splitting them out, will be beneficial for everybody. People who like Path of Exile 1 as it is will be able to keep playing that. People who want Path of Exile 2, which looks like it's taking more influence from both the original concept for Path of Exile, but also, more modern games like Elden Ring. They specifically mentioned in the announcement video about how they want to have the gameplay be more dynamic, more interesting, more challenging, not just mashing on one attack ability the whole time, but using different abilities for different situations, using dodge roll to try to avoid attacks from the enemies. So people who enjoy that kind of modern action RPG but with deep build possibilities will have Path of Exile 2, and people who like, the current Path of Exile 1, which is just crazy run through maps, defeat everything super fast, get tons of loot, will have that option as well. And then for grinding gear games, they hedge their bets. They can hopefully make lots of money from Path of Exile 2 without losing their current revenue streams. So, yes, Path of Exile. I'm looking forward to the league next month. Looking forward to the LeagueCon itself. Also, we'll probably be trying out one of the reworked ascendancies just to see if I can do something interesting there. And also super excited about Path of Exile 2. I'm very pleased that they decided to make it its own game. Um, I think that will open up a lot of design opportunities for them and make it much more interesting than just trying to cobble something together on top of a game that's been worked on for years and years and years. I'd love to hear your comments, so, post them on the video, whether you agree with me or vehemently disagree with me. It's all good. This is Robert Boyd from Zeboyd Games. Keep making and playing games.
Like and subscribe, it really helps us. Thanks for watching.